So what does the number on the suit really mean, right? When you see Super 120s, and Super 120, Super 150, Super 180s, and Super 200s, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a better quality of fabric. What you're saying is it's a rarer fabric, and the rareness of the fabric gives you the perceived quality, right? So if you're going to have a suit, like for example, this brown ensemble I'm wearing, right? Put the head in there. This brown ensemble I'm wearing is a Super 120s. But if you're going to wear a suit more than 2 or 3 times a month, then a Super 120 is your best bet. A Super 120 is Super 110s, Super 120s. As you start to get above the Super 150s, now you're saying there's only 3% of wool harvested at that quality, right? Or at that fabric count or the micron count, right? So at the end of the day, doesn't necessarily mean that a 220 is better than a 120. Well, it's kind of like saying is a Corvette better than a Ferrari. In some instances, yes, some instances not. But you're not going to take a Ferrari and drive it up and down Oakland between 6 Mile and the Lodge in Detroit. You ain't going to do it because the bumps will just tear the car up. So it depends on what you're doing and what's it for. That's what it all boils down to, right? So it's not necessarily that one is better than the other, right? It just really, one is more, the rareness of the wool is more rare than the other. And that's what you're saying, right? I saw a Super 220s in the store the other day, and I was like, and the price didn't match up because when you're talking about 220, you're talking about $1,000 a yard. And I said, no way a suit can be this inexpensive. And I asked the guy, I said, man, why is this so inexpensive? And he was like, oh, that's just the weight of the suit. Yeah, but he was kind of dismissive about it. That's partially true, but that's not the whole thing. It's not, what it is the length of the fibers and the fineness of the suit. And that fineness can give it its weight, but that's not all of it. You know what I mean? It also depends on the construction. And it's a lot harder for a tailor to work with 220s or a finer fabric than, say, a 120, So there's a lot that goes into it. And here's the kicker. Be careful of what you're buying because there is no regulation on the super numbers. So anybody can say they got 220s or 120. Anybody can say it, right? It's not like in America where you have to denote on the tag whether it's wool, silk, leather, or cashmere. You have to let that be known. But with the Super 120, that's not always the case. You don't have to do that, right? You can just say anything. So if you see a Super 220s talking about made in China, no, that's not the real article. Now it can be manufactured in China, but it can't be made in China. And what's the difference? Well, you got some labels that do a lot of their manufacturing offshore in China. You might get a Zenegna fabric, but the suit was constructed in China. But that don't mean made in China with some off-brand label. That's not what it is. So be careful when you're talking about what a Super 120 is, what a Super 220 is, and what that is, and what the suit is for, right? And that's really what we try to do here at Big Man Maintenance, right? Try to tell, the uninitiated what it's for and what they're really getting, man. So don't just buy anything. Like you see a lot of people wearing these red bottom hats, right? What if not King and James from out of Atlanta? Right? Is that the real deal? Is that the real article? So be aware of what you're buying sometimes, man.